With us live from Kentucky, Republican candidate for Senate, Rand Paul. Rand, thanks for joining us. You're doing quite well in the polls against your challenger. We'll talk about that as well as your push for the repeal of the health care bill. But first, I'd like to ask you about offshore oil drilling. What do you think about the president's move forward with that?
I think it's a good move. I mean, you look at England, and England is virtually energy independent because they've been drilling in the North Sea, and I think that's a good thing. So we need to be drilling there. We need to be drilling in Anwar. We need to be drilling around the country and encouraging our own energy production.
Let's get to our must-read op-eds. There's one about this, and I'm taking it from the Los Angeles Times. David Helvarg, oil drilling, a nasty national habit, he calls it. He says this, Tina, if the arguments you hear in the coming days for expanded drilling sounds familiar, it's because they've been repeated for generations. We've been hearing promises about safer drilling technology since before Union Oil began drilling in the Santa Barbara Channel. And if you don't remember what happened that time, you should. Soon after the wells were bored, one of them blew out in January of 1969, causing a massive oil slick that slimed beaches and killed birds, fish, and marine mammals. The resulting catastrophe helped spark the modern environmental movement. Do you think the president could pay a price on his side of the aisle for this?
Well, he could certainly pay a price. I think there's a huge amount of anger. But I think that his side are beginning to understand this is who Obama is, in a sense. I mean, he's a guy who takes the pragmatic solution on the table. And I think that he's in such a kind of political box. He's making very judicious political decisions right now. And this is one of them. And jobs is a #1 priority, and this seems to, for him now, to be the right thing to do. But I think he's definitely going to create a huge amount of anger in his own left of his party.
Mr. Paul, let me ask you, give me the principal points of opposition you have to the president's health care reform bill as it was passed.
Well, there are a lot of things I don't like about it. I would prefer to have more capitalism and less government. The whole program is more government involvement, and I think that's a mistake. We're already short of money in Medicare. Medicare is chronically short of money for one simple reason. There's not as many workers as there are used to be. There used to be 7 workers for every retiree. Now it's 1 to 1. The demographics of Medicare all point towards a shortfall. That's with the existing program. You add 30 million people to the system, and I think you're going to be short of money again. And I think ultimately that will lead to government having to ration the care.
So what do you do about, let's say I live in Paducah, Kentucky. I don't have health care. What do you do for people in your state, not exactly among the most affluent states in the country? What do you do about getting people covered who are not now covered? What can you do?
What I've been promoting is that I think we need to make health insurance more like term life insurance. For example, if my health insurance, if I have a heart attack because of your grilling me this morning, my health insurance expires, they could triple my rates. But my term life insurance doesn't expire because it's a 20-year contract. Because of that, pre-existing conditions don't concern me. Portability doesn't concern me because it's not attached to my employment. So I think if we made health insurance more like term life insurance, then we would allow a marketplace to develop. High deductibles, then the patients would care about the price. The problem we have now is that nobody cares about the price. The patient doesn't care about the price, and the doctor doesn't care about the price, so there is no real market or price competition in health care.
Let's look at the race. You are right now leading by double digits in at least 2 recent polls over your Republican challenger, Trey Grayson. You have the solid backing of the Tea Party movement. I want to ask you about that. And also the president's agenda. Do you think that will actually help get you elected, even though you have not served a day in office, in political office?
Yeah, I think the Tea Party movement is huge. I give them great credit for my momentum. The largest events I've been to in Kentucky have all been Tea Party events. 3,000 or 4,000 people gathered in Louisville, over 1,000 in Lexington, over 1,000 in Paducah, nearly 1,000 in Bowling Green here where I live. They've all been huge. There's a great momentum. And I think what people misunderstand about the Tea Party movement is it's a bipartisan chastisement of the system. If you go to these meetings, there's equal chastisement to the Republicans and to the Democrats for failure on the deficit. Now, they are all conservative. They're people who think government's out of control, spending's out of control. But I guarantee you at the Tea Party Party, there's bipartisan blame to go around for the debt.
Interesting. Mike and then Tina.
What's the reaction, if you can gauge it, among your constituents, well, they're not your constituents yet, but how did you get so lucky to have Dick Cheney and Mitch McConnell endorse your opponent? I mean, how did that happen?
I would say it's the perfect storm. It's the perfect constellation of everything coming together at once. The Tea Party movement is as big as the Republican hierarchy. So the Republican hierarchy may not all want me, but the Tea Party equals, if not outnumbers them in numbers, enthusiasm, and even in organizational ability. It just amazes me. People say, are you surprised? And I say, no, I'm astounded at what's going on here. And, you know, it also helps that being related to someone famous, I don't run away from that. That has helped me get started, never having run before. But I think also that I have to be able to present the message, and I think I can present that message, and I have across the state in over 300 speeches.
Tina Brown has a question.
Yeah, the Tea Party movement is so much about generic anger, Rand. You know, it's so much about a diffuse rage without a focus. I mean, what can actually anyone deliver to the Tea Party? I mean, for you, you're glad of their enthusiasm, but what can you deliver to that Tea Party?
Well, I would respectfully disagree that it's anger. I would say the perfect description is worry or concern. When I go to these meetings, I don't see angry people with steam coming out of their ears. I see people who are truly worried about the direction of our country. They're worried about the debt consuming us. And I'd say there is a direction. The things I talk about, term limits, reading the bills, not bailing out rich bankers who failed us and failed their companies, pointing to where the bills have justification in the Constitution. That gets kind of to what we're talking about today with the Interstate Commerce Clause in health care. Let's re-examine what we've been doing as a country and allowing the interstate commerce to mean that big government can do anything it wants.
How much are you capitalizing, Rand Paul, on the atmosphere of the moment? Look at the front page of USA Today. We'll put it up for our viewers. The headline is USA Fumes Over Politics. And part of the article says the favorable rating for the Democratic Party has fallen to its lowest level since 1992. That's when Gallup began asking the question. The Republican Party faring no better. 3 of 4 Americans say they are dissatisfied with the country's direction. That on top of the headline this morning that Clinton pollster Stan Greenberg says if the presidential election were being held today, we'd have a change election. Things would not look good for this president.
Right. Well, I think what it is what I do bring is honesty to it. I go into every city in Kentucky and I tell them honestly, I will not bring you a federal project. And most Republicans don't even do that. Most Republicans go in, they say, I'll cut your taxes, but I'll also bring you the pork barrel spending. I go to Louisville and I say, we're out of money. I can't bring you a project. I can try to leave the money in Louisville. I can try to leave the money in Kentucky, but I can't just bring it home because the pig has been picked clean and we're out of money.
So let's look at what is the product of the atmosphere of the moment, and that would be some of the tactics that candidates are using, trying to get re-election or get elected in districts and states across the country. Here is a web ad that's been put out by your opponent.
Oh. They get motivated because we're there in their country. They're in our face, in our country, because we are in their country.
The stuff we have done overseas is now brought right back into our own front yards.
Okay, the ad compares you to Jeremiah Wright. Remember him?
Oh, my goodness. My opponent also stands up and says I'm to the left of Obama. And so when I get up in the Lincoln Day crowds, I just chuckle and say, you know what? It's hard to believe Sarah Palin has endorsed someone who's supposedly to the left of Obama. So we approach some of it with ridicule, but we also are upset that he's politicizing 9/11, and we've had to respond to it. And we've responded to it by calling him, basically calling it out as being intellectually dishonest what he's doing.
All right, Rand Paul, thanks very much for being on the show. It's nice to meet you. We'll see you soon.
Nice to meet you.